Hey team, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we're going to be looking at CTEs. We'll discover both recursive and non-recursive. Please consider subscribing to my channel. Press the red subscribe link below. And you can see in this example, what I've done is I've created this CTE called average shipping. Notice this is the same SQL statement that we've been working on. So what it starts off with the word with, and then you give it any name you want, and then as, and then open and close parentheses. And this right here will create you like a data, temporary data, that can only be used once. And it can only be used in the following statement. Notice here, the name of my CTE is my like view name. It is my name that whatever you name it here is what you put here. And notice here I'm doing an alias. So notice when I select this statement, that is going to create this view, the same view that we've been messing with since we did the subquery. And now that CTE is now got a name on it. So instead of it being the view, it's the with clause. And notice now we've got the ability to select from this, and I'm joining with another table, and then we're going to group by because I'm using an aggregate function, and let's see this work. Excellent. Now, earlier I said you can't use that CTE more than once. So notice that I used it here. I can't come down here and say select star from CTE AVG shipping, right? That name, Control C, is this name right here. They're the same. Now I'm saying I can't come down here and execute this statement. Notice that this will work. I get output, but if I want to come down here and do select star from that as well, it's going to come back and say, what is this? I don't know anything about that, because as soon as you consume it, it's gone. It's temporary, one-time use. That's our first example on CTE. In CTE example 1, we gave the most basic layout. In our next one, we're going to kick it up just a notch. It's pretty much the same CTE with one change. Notice here in the original one, we said with CTE shipping as. In our second example, we're actually going to use parameters, and these are our output parameters. And what they do is they take our columns that are in our select statement and we put them up on the top here. And then what we do is when we come down here to our select, those are the values that we consume. Does that make sense? So once again, they are the same except we used parameters. And they're just the columns. It's one-to-one mapping. So this one goes to the first one, this goes to the second one, and this whole thing goes here to the third one. And then down here at the bottom, I would just use them appropriately. And that is example 2. Now in example 3, it's just a little bit different than in previous ones. Notice that I have like example 1 CTE example. I'm going out and getting some data, and I'm going to assign it to this CTE name, if you will, a view. And notice that I'm using a comma and then I'm giving another CTE. Important note is we're not using with. With is only used one time. And I can use this comma new CTE. I can use many of these. I recommend you don't use too many, because then it gets hard to understand what you're doing. But if you have more things that we're joining with, of course you need to use it appropriately. So here you can see that CTE territory, I'm going to join it with CE territory. This is a standalone statement. And notice that I went out and got the territory IDs. On the first query, I went out and I got a territory ID, but I didn't have the name associated with it. And that is why I'm doing the join down here. And when I execute this CTE, I get the same data. And that is the end of our third example. Let's look at our first CTE recursive. You'll notice here that I have the with clause, the beginning of a CTE statement. I have the CTE name. Then I have the fields that make up our result set. And then inside of the CTE, I have the first SQL statement followed by a union and then a second SQL statement. But look at this. What makes this recursive is I'm going to join that with the CTE itself. So as we go and get the first record, notice that I've simply go out and get the CEO and I find out his business ID is 1. And then recursively, I'm going to march through the employees and I'm going to join it with what I already have in the CTE. And this list is just going to keep building. So we just put 1 in there, the CEO, and let's see what happens after I just insert him. So notice, as soon as I insert the first record, now I have 5 other business entities that I'm going to use to continue building that list. So you can see at the bottom of our select statement, I'm switching the business entity with the manager's ID. So notice here, I looked at all where the manager's ID is 1. So what happens is I keep diving down. Sooner or later, this expression evaluates to null. That's when I know I'm done. That is when the recursiveness of this CTE is finished. And this union will put all that together for us. And once he does this, this CTE will behave like a view. And then I can come down here to my statement and say, go ahead and show me everything in there. Let's execute that. And there you have it. In our second example of a CTE that uses recursion, we're going to introduce 2 new features. The first feature is a counter. And this counter will count the number of times recursion executes. Notice here in my result fields, I've added hierarchy level. I initialize it to 1 in my base SQL statement. And then in my recursion select statement, notice that I'm incrementing it by 1 each time. There's one other option available. When you're first designing your CTE that uses recursion, it is possible that your data is not set up correctly and this thing executes to infinity and beyond. But what you can do is you can say option max recursion is 6 and then it will exit early. Since I know this takes 6 to do it, I'm going to do it as 2 so you can see the error that it generates. And notice that it says the maximum 2 I didn't complete yet. So set it to something you know and let it run. Don't use this and it's possible that it locks up this application. So let's execute this and see what happens. And notice my output is generated. And I get the employee. The CEO has no manager. So level 2, level 3, level 4, and at the very bottom, level 5. And there you have the second example. Thanks for taking the time to view this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't subscribed, now would be a good time. Please support my channel.